Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Zero to Empire podcast. In this episode, I have Peter Rendina, and he's an executive professional coach, and he's going to be going over his story and actually what inspired him to become a coach. So, Peter, thank you for being on the podcast. And my first question to you is, what inspired you to become a coach and go down this path?
Yeah, thanks, Sam. Appreciate you having me on here on Zero to Empire. There wasn't one thing or encounter or one person. Thinking about this question, Sam, I have to point to a totality of my life experiences that led me to founding my coaching practice, Rendina Solutions LLC. So our values and our belief systems are ingrained in us at a very early age by our parents. We're caretakers, and over time, our influence it expands out to other relatives, coach friends, teachers, athletic coaches, and the list goes on. So going back to my original influencers, my parents, they were very giving and always willing to help or serve others, and that was passed down to me. I retired from a career of 30 years of governmental service, with 25 of those years as a federal law enforcement agent with America's oldest federal law enforcement agency, the U.S. Postal Inspection Service. So, what inspired me to become a coach? I saw it as an opportunity to serve others in my second chapter now that I'm a retired federal agent postal inspector.
Yeah, that's an impressive background, and definitely one of my first guests being in the federal space. And what actually inspired or surprised you the most about the coaching process when you got involved in it and started to start it?
Well, I'm going to go back to the first time I was exposed to an executive coach, and that was back in 2018. The coaching was part of an executive leadership development training offered by my former agency. I was offered 6 sessions. I went into the first session thinking the coach was a seasoned executive leader that I could share a difficult task or conversation that I was struggling through, and they would offer advice on how to handle it. Um, I guess I was surprised because I had a preconceived notion that really defines what a consultant is or an advisor is, not really what a coach is. So it took me a little bit, and I finally realized that the coach was going to continue to acknowledge and validate the feelings and the emotions I was experiencing and continue to ask me open ended and empowering questions. What I didn't realize, and what many people don't realize, the answer is within you or within the client. And deep down, you know what you need to have to do to move forward in your professional and your personal life. So it's the coach's work to act as a mirror and reflect back awareness, the story that you tell yourself of why you can or can't do something, and eventually the plan that fills the space between where you currently are and where you eventually want to be.
Yeah, that makes sense. And when did you first realize helping others solve their own problems brought you joy?
Well, it goes back to that same coaching experience in 2018. The coach had me do a series of exercises, and it was like putting together pieces of a puzzle. It took a few weeks to piece it together, examining my values, my belief systems, emotions when I felt like I was doing something that I loved, and then when something triggering would come up, causing stress and anxiety or uncertainty. So, kind of jotting down all those feelings and those emotions. The end product was a life purpose statement. And that life purpose statement came out to be: when people bring me challenges or hurdles and trust me to listen along with their thoughts on a path forward, it brings me great joy to see their eventual success. Easy for me to say, right? And I still feel that this is the definition of a coach. I knew at that time that I wanted to get into coaching at some point. So whether it's in their professional life or personal life, all people can conduct a current state assessment and see where they are. All people know where they eventually want to be. A lot of people are afflicted by the little voice in the back of their heads, or possess assumptions, make interpretations, or limiting beliefs of why they can't move forward on a goal. The coach is there to partner with their clients on how to fill that space between. Again, people know where they are, they know where they want to get to, but just need someone to shine the light on the darkness of the space in between. It's literally supporting them with the first step toward achieving their goal, then the second, the third, until they go from crawling to walking to running on their own, really.
Yeah, having support is definitely very key when going through life. And what would you say is the biggest misconception people have about the retirement from the federal law enforcement?
Sam, there are many. But before I get into misconceptions, I want your listeners to know that there's a mandatory retirement upon your 57th birthday as a federal agent. Too young to sit on the rocking chair. Also, you can retire as early as 50 with 20 years of service, or at any age with 25 years of service. There are some that retire young and have hobbies or volunteer work that fulfills purpose for them. And they were smart financially to be able to, quote unquote, not work anymore. The key term that I just used was purpose. As humans, we have a need to feel valued, that we are serving a purpose while we're here on earth. So, in the federal law enforcement community, we call retirement our second or our next chapter. So, the misconceptions, I've got three at the top of mind, Sam, now that you've asked. The first one is your job title or your rank. So, you can look at this two different ways. When we talk about job titles in the law enforcement realm, we're talking about colonels, captains, lieutenants, sergeants, federal agents. We have team leaders, group supervisors, special agents in charge. We have all these different names for the titles. And if you're in that community, you know what that meant. You knew what that took. However, when you leave that service, that government service, and you go into private industry, we're talking foreign languages with each other. So some people can look into this like, hey, my job title or my rank with the government should be enough. Sam, I finished my career as the deputy chief of my organization. I was the number two. I should be able to say to somebody in private industry, well, I was the deputy chief. That's a mistake on my part because they may not know what that means or what it took to get there. The other way you can look at that is, you know what, private industry isn't going to understand the jargon that I use or the titles that I use. And if I go to over explain it, maybe they don't get it, right? And we're not going to connect. So why bother? So you get people that get caught up in this whole job title piece of things. What I'm telling you as someone who is leaving government service, yeah, the onus is on you. Find parallels in the jobs that you're looking at outside of government service. Find the parallels of those job duties and responsibilities and be able to explain how you've already accomplished these things in your 20, 30-year career. Number two, you hear people talk about this. I'll start planning for the next chapter after I retire from federal service. And many, to include myself at one point, feel guilty about preparing themselves for that next chapter, like it's taking away from their current positions. This is the furthest from the truth. And if you have a growth mindset and continuously learn, you will take those new learnings or skills into your current position, making you even better. And then the third and final misconception I like to throw out there, I'll never find a job that gives me the same sense of purpose that my position as a federal agent. So many feel that once they lose their badge and their credential, that they lose their identity. They lose their ability to serve. I'm here to tell you, there are so many ways to serve others without wearing the uniform or possessing a badge or having that service weapon tied to your hip.
Yeah, definitely going to have a purpose outside of that and provide service to others outside of the federal law. And tell us about the story of your colleague that was actually approaching retirement, the one that actually changed your mission and got you all involved in the coaching.
Yeah. This individual, before becoming a federal agent, he served honorably in the military. He had some unresolved trauma from his military days, right? So he stuffed that trauma down, those emotions that were associated, he stuffed it down. And, he marched forward. He marched forward into a career of federal law enforcement as the United States Postal Inspector. And in 2001, he was infected with anthrax. There was a period of time we didn't think that he was going to make it. He did make it. Matter of fact, he physically and fully recovered and came back to work. He worked 24/7. And he expected the same effort from everyone he worked with. He was gruff, he was gritty, he was a hard worker, and no one was ever going to outwork him. So I knew his 57th birthday was coming up in about 5.5 months. At the time, he worked in the division that I led. I asked him what his retirement plans were, and he looked surprised that I even asked the question. He said, "What do you mean?" I told him that I knew his 57th birthday was coming up and that his retirement would be mandatory. He then told me, well, I was going to ask for an extension. And I replied that it's not because of incompetence or a lack of work ethic. It's just that the extension wouldn't be warranted because his position was in a major metro area. And we had a number of capable journeyman agents ready to take over his leadership duties upon his departure. Plus, and this is the biggest thing, Sam, is that I assured him that his retirement was well earned and he deserved to move on to something new. He didn't like my answer, nor the subject matter of our conversation. And, look, I told him that I know you have a boat. He had a nice house on the water. And I said, I want you to think about that. And I want you to come back in about a month. I want to talk to you again about what your immediate retirement plans are going to be. Even if the plan's going to be, I'm going to take about 3 months, unwind, enjoy water sports, fish, and start thinking about chapter number 2. That's a plan, right? As long as you know that's what you're going to do. So he begrudgingly came back the next month and he said, hey, I actually talked to a financial advisor. He told me for benefit reasons, it's better to retire a month earlier than my birthday. So he actually gave me the satisfaction of saying, you saved me some money. But then he said, I'm still going to tell people you kicked me out. So he still wasn't happy about this whole thing. So, Sam, there's a lot more to the story. But the day where he had to come in to turn his accountable property, he was 3 hours late. This was supposed to be a happy day. But once he arrived, he looked out of sorts. He was uncharacteristically not put together. He was not prepared. There was one item in his accountable property that he couldn't find. And he went over to a locked filing cabinet in his office, and he was fumbling around with the key in the lock. And the next thing was we saw him fall back, hit his head on the wooden desk. Next thing I know, he's laying on the floor and he's bleeding out. We had to get EMS to come and take him to the hospital. This is during COVID, right? During the pandemic. So we couldn't go with him in the ambulance. We couldn't go into the hospital. It took a long time for anyone to get information about his well-being, to include his wife. We finally found out that he didn't sleep for 2 weeks prior to that day. He wasn't eating. He had a panic attack. And he and I now talk about that day. He saw retirement as empty. He saw all the trauma and the emotions he never dealt with finally having the ability to see the light of day, because he wouldn't be able to stuff them down with work. And he is the reason I wanted to focus on helping federal agents transition from their first career to their next.
Wow. I'm so sorry for that friend of yours. That's very unfortunate, but I'm glad you're there to help him and get that all situated. And why are federal agents such a unique audience for coaching for you?
Yeah, so a lot of law enforcement training is around how to get control of situations, especially situations where agents are engaging with dangerous criminals that possess the intent to harm. The unwritten culture of law enforcement is to have a stoic demeanor. Don't show you have feelings or emotions. Better yet, don't acknowledge you even possess emotions, because that would be a sign of weakness. So trauma, feelings, and emotions, they get stuffed down. They get ignored, suppressed through working more hours, or suppressed through alcohol or drugs, anything not to address the emotion you're currently experiencing. So a good friend and a colleague of mine, Marcel Brunel, he runs Dignity Incorporated, introduced me to the emotion of dispassion. So for law enforcement, if someone presses your buttons or a stressor is introduced, dispassion may be the emotion you consciously choose in the moment for a successful resolution. Now, if that's the coping mechanism in the moment, there needs to be time in the near future that you reflect on that stressor. Why did it make you angry or frustrated? And this is where a coach can help.
Yeah, that makes sense. And what's your favorite part of the work you're doing now? And what's actually the hardest as well?
Yeah, as a Institute for Professional Excellence in Coaching, or IPEC trained core energy coach, I listen for internal blocks as people tell me how they want to improve their personal or professional lives. I also know and trust that every one of my clients possess the answer within. So my favorite part of the work is when I see the light go on for the client, when they finally see the hurdle in their way and how they themselves can move it, go around it, and start creating action steps and habits toward the success that they're seeking. The hardest, well, that's my own internal work. I'm a recovering fixer, Sam. For the longest time, when people would start talking to me about their problem or their challenge, my wheels start going and I'm thinking of a solution for them. They wouldn't even finish their second sentence and I'm offering advice. I found that most of the time they came to me to sound out their solution that they already formulated, and I wouldn't even let them get there. As a coach, I have to go into every session with a blank slate mentality, focus on truly being present for my client, and to be non judgmental. While this is my hard work, when I find myself truly present for the client, this is the most rewarding.
Yeah, that's definitely rewarding. And that's good that you can be self aware of your own troubles and acknowledge that and go about it with your clients in the best way possible. And what's actually a piece of advice that you would give to someone who's about to face a major identity shift?
Yeah, do some deep internal digging and inventory. Know and be comfortable with yourself. With one chapter of your life coming to a close and a new one on the horizon, you're going to want to ensure your values and your belief systems still align with who you want to be. And whatever this new venture is, does it align with who you are? Does it give you a sense of purpose? These are the questions that people should ask themselves.
Yeah, that makes sense. And when it goes back to your journey before you started your business, what would you tell yourself before you got into it?
It's okay to start preparing for this next chapter as you're closing out 30 years of governmental service, right? So in those last 3 to 5 years, you kind of know when you're getting ready to close the door. It's okay to get started on your education that's required, work out some practicum exercises, go through your certifications. Many feel this is a slight to their current career. I know in my case, everything that I was doing to prepare for that next career made me better at my current position. Build a diverse network of people. Many of us build a network of like-minded people or people within our current workspace. I would encourage building a diverse network with varied experiences. This is the best way to get a wide variety of solutions, ideas, and thoughts around your next chapter. Create a business plan. I would suggest working with an advisor for a realistic capital estimation required to get started and carry you through a period of time until your business is profitable. Work with a coach like me. Creating a business is life changing. You will go through a range of emotions with excitement to doubt. You're going to say to yourself, I got this. Or you may go the next day to, man, what was I thinking? The coach can partner with you to finding answers you need to press forward. A coach can also help you with aligning your mission, vision, goals, objectives to your values and your principles, ultimately giving you the ability to step back and ensure your business satisfies your sense of purpose while being financially stable. And finally, as long as you're putting in the work, be patient, trust the process.
Oh, yes, that's some solid advice. And where can people actually really reach out to you if they would like to be your or like be a client of yours for your coaching business?
Yeah, they can connect with me right here on LinkedIn. We're on LinkedIn, PR Rendina CPC, or they can go to my website, rendinasolutions.com.
That's awesome. Make sure to go check out Peter, become a client of his. And yeah, thank you everyone for watching the episode of Zero to Empire. I'll see you in the next one.